Welcome to That Sounds Gay. I'm in. As you can see, this week we have a little bit of a different setup. I am here joined this week by Amiah. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Amiah. My pronouns are she, her. I'm your local queer, trans, lesbian soldier.
And they've joined us this week to let us know about their life and experiences in the military. And next week it will be myself and somebody else, and then Matt will rejoin us afterwards. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and get on into it. Welcome back. So, like I said, we are here joined today with Amiah, yeah, I said that right, correct?
Amiah. Yeah, Maya or Amiah. I've gone by Maya for 30 years. Amiah is my chosen name. Either
Okay.
or works for me.
So, what can you tell me about yourself? Maybe something about that painting in the background first. What's that of?
It's actually not a painting. It's like a Tatooine tapestry.
Star Wars related.
It is. The last time that I was in Poland, I was stuffed in like a tiny little Harry Potter closet, and this was my wall art. And so, of course, when I came home, I wanted to hang it up in my kind of like my art room.
But yeah, go ahead and tell me about yourself. What branch of the military are you in?
I am active duty Army. I'm currently stationed at Fort Riley in the 1st Infantry Division. Part of my day-to-day operations, I work with the Army Barracks Management Program right now, but I've served in every position from radio operator at the most junior level all the way up to first sergeant of a signal company here on Fort Riley. I've been in for just over 18 years, and I've been to a whole lot of different places, from North Carolina to Georgia to South Carolina to Korea, Iraq, Virginia, DC, West Virginia, Arizona, and then I landed here in Kansas, I think around 2 years ago, and I've been here since.
All over the place. Of all those jobs, you mentioned quite a few. Which one would you say was your actual favorite of the positions that you worked?
It's just going to sound like really horrible, but I absolutely loved the most junior level of being a radio operator. And part of that for me was every day I would just get a mission set and they'd say, hey, you need to go out and make sure that this person had retransmission capabilities, or this person needs to communicate, or you need to pass this message on. And it was a lot of fun for me. And so it was really fulfilling as a junior soldier. But the more senior in rank you get, the more managerial and away from your specific job specifications, your MOS, your military occupational specialty, the more senior you get in rank, usually the farther you get away from the technical aspect.
On the exact flip side of it, favorite location that you were at? Did you listen to those two?
Oh my gosh. So I loved Korea and I loved DC. So I was at Fort Belvoir in Virginia, and it's like a cultural mecca. So all of the fun things and fun cultures that you get to see elsewhere in the world, they just get condensed into like Northern Virginia. And so I absolutely loved the Northern Virginia, DC metro area. But if we're talking about like outside of the States, I love South Korea. I still eat food from South Korea today, and it's still like I'm a foodie. And so part of like what I loved about Korea was just all these new foods and new things that I never got to see in rural North Carolina.
See, you're not the first one to tell me that. My husband is actually ex-army as well. He was stationed in South Korea. Like his favorite place ever is he loved being out there. He said he got tense from time to time. Do you feel like it was a safe environment while you're out there where you were at? Or because I mean, right next to North Korea, that's got to be a little bit stressful.
It's not as stressful as you would think. When I was there, and this is going to date my time in the Army, but it was 7-8, and we had a curfew, and so we had to be back on post at a certain time, and we were only allowed to go, X amount of distance from our unit. And if we did go farther than that, typically it was on a sponsored tour, like we toured the DMZ. the demilitarized zone. So right there on the border, and that was like one of my highlights was getting to see such a historic place. And so kinda not as stressful as everyone would think. We would have drills that would basically, get all your stuff and get to this location super fast. But
And I imagine
realistically,
that's military.
yeah, it's almost like any other short-term deployment or rotation. I was there for a year, but it wasn't necessarily the most stressful environment I've been in.
Okay. So going back towards your beginning time period, you had mentioned being started over there in like 2007, 2008 time period. That was whenever everything was really stressful with the LGBT community and the military and everything like that. I have to ask, how did you navigate your your just overall identity while serving? And were you out to your comrades, or did you feel the need to keep it private?
So realistically, I didn't come out to anyone in the military, the army, any of my friends until around 2007 or 2017 was when I said, you know what? I started having conversations with my wife and explaining who I was. We'd been together for I don't even know at that time. So 2017, we got married in 2007. We had been together for a decade and we had been dating for probably 14 years. So we've been together for a really long time. But for the army, I stayed in the closet until 2017, and then 2018 got a little bit better. 19 was a lot better. We moved to Arizona and I started a little bit more community. I really didn't start serving authentically, like out to everyone until last year. Um, and it's probably the most freeing thing ever. Like, you don't have to live that double life. You don't have to keep a secret. Like, I'm out to everyone and they know exactly who I am, what I stand for, who I'm with, what flags I'm flying. Like, I'm here to squeeze triggers, stack bodies, and be me.
And especially with how close everybody is in the military, like you guys practically, I mean, you literally sleep on top of each other. Keeping a secret like that must have been damn near impossible.
Yeah, and so a lot of the times, you find like that one close friend or those two close friends. When I was in North Carolina, I was at Fort Liberty and I was there when Don't Ask, Don't Tell got repealed. And I celebrated with my platoon sergeant at the time. And she and her wife, when I was in DC, I got ordained in DC so that I could be the officiant at their marriage at the Jefferson Memorial. And so there was like a lot of hints like, hey, I'm probably queer, in case you didn't know, but no outward like, hey, just so that you know, I'm that one trans that you know, right? Like, it wasn't until last year where I was like, hey, just so that I kind of want to start, piercing my ears or growing out my hair. I just dropped 7K on laser so that my boy beard can go away. I don't ever have to worry about shaving again. You know what I mean? So like you rock
It's
facial
frustrating because
hair.
I can't
I'm not
get the rest of mine. Like I got patches that won't come in.
Yeah, no. Before me, I had a gangster beard. I hated it though. Like, it's the happiest that I've ever been. Like, I don't have to wake up in the morning and worry about shaving. Dudes, they got to wake up every morning. They got to shave. Somebody yelling at them, running down their neck, like, "Hey, why didn't you shave today?" Blah 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 blah. Me, I just roll out of bed, brush my teeth, throw on a bra and some uniform, and I'm good to go.
I mean, you definitely present a different kind of getting ready to go than from what I've been hearing from a lot of the other from feminine side of the aspects. I normally hear a lot of, oh, it takes me hours. But I mean, hey, in the military, everything goes super fast.
Yeah, no, I just kind of like my hair's getting a little bit longer now, and so like my exception to policy for female grooming standards got granted back in April, and then my gender marker got changed just in August. So I finally can be me through uniform, be me through piercing my ears and having my hair out. I can finally like paint my nails something other than clear. But realistically, like I'm not trying to do all that during the week. I'm just trying to like roll in, be me. I might throw in some earrings. I might not. There's a very real possibility that I'm not going to throw on foundation or mascara or lipstick or nothing. I'm just going to go in plain face, get the job done, and then come home and smile about it, right? Like, it's not as deep as everybody makes it out to be. I'm just trying to go to work.
Slight little bit, and I wanted to ask if you could possibly expand and share on how policies of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and how it affected your time in the service, whether or not it changed the way you interacted with any fellow service members, if it possibly affected the direction or trajectory of your career.
Definitely. So I remember just the amount of conversations that I had with queer service members that were in my units and how much that looming weight was just above them and our friendship and their ability to basically just be themselves, right? And so for a long time it was, you couldn't show anybody this much of yourself. Nobody needs to know anything except for from here up. And then that gets taken away, and then that gets taken away. And so as those barriers are taken away, your camaraderie, your bond, your closeness, your ability to sit on a firing line or sit in a truck or sit on a convoy or go on a patrol or develop that bond that realistically it's what's going to pull you through to the next day. Your ability to get closer to another human being on an emotional aspect and say, guess what? Like, you're going through this with your spouse. I also go through this with my spouse. I'm not cishet, but whatever. It builds a bond that just being authentic and being able to say, this is me. I don't have to keep it a secret. I'm not keeping anything from you. It builds that blood. And when Don't Ask, Don't Tell got pulled, and everybody could just be like, hey, I'm queer and that's okay. Like, I'm still the same person that I was yesterday. The only difference is now I don't have to hide an entire part of me. And I think that builds kind of like a blood bond. There's something that can be really special about somebody that serves in uniform to your left or to your right. And part of that is just being able to be you and be like authentic.
And also, the option and capability of like relating to each other, talking to the person and be like you were talking about being able to be like, I may not have a wife, but me and my husband were talking about the exact same thing. It puts you guys
Yeah.
on a more of a familiar basis. You're not so weird anymore. You're not so different. You're exactly like them. And that would
It,
probably make a lot of like wartime situations a lot safer for soldiers if
yeah.
everybody was.
Now it's not like, Private Sale doesn't have a boyfriend or Private Sale doesn't have a girlfriend. Private Sale has nobody. Well, realistically, Private Sale has been in a domestic partnership with somebody for the past 8 years, but they can't tell you about that because if they tell you about that, you'll know that they're in a single sex relationship, or, they're gay or they're lesbian or they're, whatever they like. But you don't get to see that part of them because there's this policy in place that says, your your ability to serve is somehow shadowed or um hindered, or you're not as much of a soldier because you're gay or queer or you're trans or whatever.
An opposite end of that. Was there any was there any experiences that you could possibly share with us where you felt like genuinely accepted by the government and the military, where you actually felt like they were truthfully welcoming and not just presentationally?
Yeah. Oddly enough, when I came out, and so you got to understand, I came out when I was a first sergeant and was like, hey, I don't know the best way to tell you this, but this is going to fundamentally change our relationship. And I told my command sergeant major, and like, I'm one of his, right-hand soldiers. I was one of his 4 first sergeants, right? So it was me, another dude, another dude, another dude. And I'm like, hey, just so that you know, I'm not one of the dudes. I realistically, this is gonna fundamentally change our relationship. And dude was like, nah, actually, we're good. And, his his name's Brian. I won't say his last name because like I don't know how much he likes to portray that side of himself, but he was honestly the kindest and most genuine person I had ever met in the Army, and he was the first person other than like my behavioral health provider who I was like, "Hey, just so that you know, I'm queer." Um, in the Army. And after that, I came out to my brigade commander and my brigade command sergeant major, and both of them were like, "Yeah, we got you, bro." I'm like, "I'm not a bro, but thanks. I really appreciate that." And as I've become authentic and came out and been able to be me, I don't think I've ran into one person in a bathroom one time that was like, "Hey, you're not supposed to be in the dude's room. You've got earrings and makeup on." And it was like one of the days where I actually put on makeup. And so like I got a complaint that I was in the boys' bathroom, but like I was following regulations at the time. I couldn't be in the right bathroom, and so they kicked me out of there, and I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I'll go I don't know where."
Problem that's
But that's the
fundamentally wrong with the bathroom bills.
yeah, we could talk for days about why it's not about bathrooms, but we'll leave that for another time. But no, the Army, the military, realistically, as a whole, I've I've had nothing but positive experiences. And I've gone and I've talked to senior leadership. I've gone and I've talked to generals. I've gone and I've talked to, command sergeants majors. I've gone and talked to, you name the rank. I've talked to them. I've talked to civilians that work for the Army. I've talked to a lot of people. I'm the most senior transgender advocate on Fort Riley, right? And I talk to a lot of people about my community and, the great things that we do. And every single time I am just amazed at the amount of, "Actually, you are just like me. You like shooting guns. I like shooting guns too. You like driving trucks. I like driving trucks too. You like it when the gun goes kaboom a boom and blowing stuff. You like playing with C4. I love playing with C4. Like there hasn't been an instance where the bond of uniform, the bond of, a flag on your right shoulder, that U.S. Army namesake that you wear, there hasn't been a time where somebody's been like, "You're queer? Like, I don't want to play with you." There's, there's just nobody really cares. They're just like, "Hey, I'm happy you're here. Thanks for serving." Smile, giggle. And that's not to say like behind the scenes, there's not like a onesie or a twosie that's like, "Oh, I hate that person," or whatever. I'm
Be
not losing
everywhere.
sleep about them. Yeah, I'm not losing sleep about a bigot that I'm never going to have an impact on their life and they're never going to have an impact on my life.
So with the positive outcome that you got out of coming out, do you regret or wish you would have come out earlier?
Yes. It would have taken yeah, if I would have had the personal courage or the strength to be like, "Hey, this is me back in Iraq," or, 2010, 2009, the amount of professional and personal growth that I could have accomplished between, that decade long span and just not having to have anything like hidden in the background, like, "Oh my God, there's, you know, this whole queer back here," but like, all right, well, if I would have been able to come out sooner, if I would have known just exactly how loving and how supportive and how community oriented the Army was, it boils down to like safety, right? Like I felt safe with a leader um who genuinely cared. Brian was a great leader. And he made it so that I felt safe enough and comfortable enough to come out. And if I would have had him a decade sooner, you know, I had many great leaders and I love them all to death. But if I would have been able to be me sooner, I would not have shed as many tears as I've shed.
Which, I mean, hey, at least everything turned out well in the end. But
But yeah,
let's take a really quick break, and we will be right back after these couple quick commercials.
okay.
Every year, millions of us are sidelined by the cold and flu. But it doesn't have to be this way. A simple cold and flu vaccine is your best defense, reducing the risk of severe illness for you and your loved ones. Protect what matters most. It's quick, easy, and more important than ever. Because staying healthy means staying together.
Life is about making memories, living fully, and loving freely. But there's one thing you shouldn't leave to chance: your health. The human papillomavirus, or better known as HPV, is a common virus that can lead to certain cancers in everyone. Yes, everyone. Men, women, non-binary folks. Virus does not care, and everybody is at risk. The HPV vaccine is safe, effective, and protects you from more than just the virus. It's a shield for your future. Protect yourself and the ones you love, because health is for everyone. Ask your healthcare provider about the HPV vaccine today. Get vaccinated, live protected, live protected. And welcome back. So, as we were talking about previously, we had kind of gone over the concepts of how the military had affected both sides of everything with the don't ask, don't tell policies. And then, of course, on the other side of everything, how they were beneficial. What are your thoughts on the changes that have occurred in the military, like military policies around LGBT service members, such as the repeal of the don't ask, don't tell, inclusion of trans service members, which is obviously a very important topic for you, but like what policies and procedures actually made you very happy, or how did the changes thereof?
And so I can really honestly say that the Army, we have come a long ways, right? I joined in 2006.
I am so sorry. If I could possibly interject an additional question really quickly.
Yeah, go for
With
it.
the policies that are done, we obviously know that the president is the commander-in-chief who hands down the orders to the military. How different are the policies between the branches? Like,
It's a
don't ask, don't
very,
tell applied to
yeah.
one but not the other.
Okay, so don't ask, don't tell. That was a Department of Defense wide policy, right? And if you look at echelons of policy and how they're written, right? So a Department of Defense level policy, it applies to all branches of the military service, right? But there might be an organization that looks at a certain policy and they say, you know what, we can shape this policy this way and it would be better for our service members, right? And so you might have a super inclusive branch of the military and one that's just kind of getting by. And you might have one that's kind of at a middle ground and, you know, one that's just a little bit different. And so you do see little differences in policy at those branch levels. There isn't one specific transgender policy that applies to every single branch of the military, except for the Department of Defense policy, right? You can, authentically serve so long as you are otherwise qualified to serve in the United States military, you can be trans. But the way that the Army wrote their policy and the Marine Corps and the Navy and the Air Force and the Space Force and the Coast Guard, the way that we all wrote our policies, they're not all little cookie cutter and mirrored of each other. They apply specifically to the branch, right? Because we are a land occupying force that denies enemy access to most land spaces, right? As the Army, but the Air Force, they're more worried about the air, and the Space Force, aliens and the space.
Guess that's down the water.
Yeah, I mean, no. We could talk an entire segment about aliens and stuff too, right?
I mean,
But
I'd
like
love
the
to,
Navy,
but
yeah. I'm sure that they're gonna release all kinds of documents eventually one day. But like the Navy has a policy that I feel as though if we were going to look at a branch and say, they're getting some things right, the Air Force has an excellent policy, right? The Navy, they have a pretty freaking good policy from what I've heard speaking with branch service members that are in communities that I advocate with. The Army, we've come a long way. And realistically, we're on a good path now. When the current administration said, hey, you can serve authentically, congratulations. I was a platoon sergeant at the time. And I was like, you know what? Now's not the right time. I'll just kind of set this on the back burner. But it's great that I could be out to everyone and there wouldn't be any ramifications, right? As we progress further and further along with military policy, and you start to see a more diverse military that represents every segment and cross culture of America, right? Like, I don't know how to tell you this, but not everybody in America is a bald white dude, right? And so if you just have a monoculture, yeah, if you have a monoculture in any kind of work environment, you're at a detriment, right? You're not as effective as a more diverse fighting force. And you can see that play out numerous times throughout history where the Department of Defense was one of the first organizations to desegregate. And look at how strong their culture became because of it, right? We're the greatest fighting force in the world, and we're easily on the forefront of desegregating our spaces. The second that they started letting female operators, come into combatant spaces, and one of the most, can I say curse words? Curse words probably aren't bad. One of the most bad infantry women I know, she
If you wanted to
is
say
a
badass, that's
trans.
perfectly fine.
Okay, dope. Yeah, she is a ranger. She's a trans army like badass, right? So like she can, squeeze triggers, stack bodies, teach you a class, roll through every bit of, what it is to be an infantryman in the United States Army, and her ability to lead soldiers in combat is a force multiplier, right? You see force multiplication every time a barrier is broken down in the United States, right? So if we talk about how diverse our nation is and why we should celebrate diversity in our armed forces, it makes us a more effective fighting force. If you want somebody to go out and support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, guess what? You want that diverse organization. You want a Navy that represents every bit of your culture. You want a Marine Corps, an Air Force, a Space Force. You want an Army.
Yeah.
We're moving in the right direction.
Of course, back to the original question, with all that being said, what kind of policies were you actually very happy with that were changed within the military, even if they were little policies that just genuinely made you happy?
Okay. Probably the biggest one for me, and it was something so minuscule and like tiny, but it brought me like secret joy when I was presenting as a dude, right? When I was in survival mode, they came out with this policy in the Army where dudes could wear clear nail polish. And I was totally stoked about it. Like, I had been buffing and filing my nails for like general hygiene reasons for, I don't even know, maybe a decade longer. But the second that they were like, oh my gosh, you can have clear nail polish, I was like, yeah, I can finally protect like all of the hard work that I put into, taking care of my nails and making them look presentable in uniform. You want to look good when you stand up there in your uniform. But the second where they said, hey, you can paint your nails with clear nail polish, that sent me like over the moon. I was so beyond ecstatic, and nobody could wrap their head around it, right? So I was still in the closet. I was just like, oh yeah, well, dudes can have clear nail polish. It's super cool. And
You also just
they were just
accidentally
like,
explained the point behind clear nail polish to me. I've always been curious. I've never known. I'm a terrible guy.
yeah, no, I mean, so realistically, like, what if you work in a laboratory or around chemicals all day, right? And your nail beds or your nails, they get hit with that chemical all day, right? And you wash your hands and you put lotion on your hands, but how are you going to take care of your nails? You need that clear nail polish to protect all of your hard work. And if you're going to put in time and effort to buff them and make them look beautiful and shine them up, why are you going to throw that all away by not putting a clear coat on top? Take care of yourself and be pretty.
Would you give to any LGBTQ plus individuals who are considering joining the military today?
I would say that ask yourself if you are ready. I was a recruiter, full disclosure, I was a recruiter in rural West Virginia for a really long time, and I talked to a whole bunch of people, and you need to understand that there is a segment of the country that this just is not the life for them. If you're about Yeah, it's realistically like the most rewarding and hardest thing I've ever done, but I wouldn't change any bit of it for the world. And you matter, right? So like your representation matters. You being out, you being queer, you being proud, you being able to serve your country, right? In a way that fits you. There's no other opportunity like this in the world. I would have never gotten out of rural North Carolina if I hadn't joined the United States Army. I would probably still be on the coast of Carolina, like as an electrician, being stupid and hating my life. Now I get to do stupid stuff and hate my life with my brothers and sisters in arms, and we can have fun about it. But realistically, if you're young, if you're queer, if you think that the army or if you think that the military is right for you, talk to another queer that's in the military. Ask them what their experience is like. I've had a lot of great experiences, but I've had a lot of bad experiences. It's give and take. Um, if you're ready to sacrifice just a little bit of yourself for the reward that it is to serve your country, then cool, do it. But if it's not for you, don't do it. Like don't let somebody force your hand into joining um if it's not something that your heart isn't truly in. I love my job. I love my career. I love every bit of the army. But there are people that do not. There are people that absolutely hate it. Um and they might only do 4 year contract. They might only do, a short stint. They might only get that college education money that they were going for, that insurance to cover, X, Y, or Z, or they might have only done it for just a short stint. But at the end of the day, they don't have to do it forever. Use it as a stepping stone. It's it's not that bad. Like realistically, you just wake up early in the morning, do PT, go home, eat if you eat breakfast, get changed, go work your 9 to 5, get your hour for lunch, maybe hour and a half if you got a good command. And then, I come home, shed the snake skin, and then I'm a mom, right? Like I've got 2 kids and, a dog and a wife, and they take up a lot of my time, but I'm the most average bitch you know. I'm not that professional. I'm sorry.
I mean, I feel like everybody who's already noticed that. I mean, I wear Snuggies. I'm wearing a hat, taking a selfie of Bigfoot being abducted by. Come on, we got Ghostface behind us.
Yeah. I stop at Aldi for LaCroix and sleep with a whoopee, and I'm really basic. I'm sorry that I'm not like some superhero.
My last question for you, though, and trust me, you're not basic. Trust me. But with my last question for you, given the current geopolitical state of everything, there's been an overall tone of how everybody's kind of felt. With our new president-elect and new commander-in-chief coming in, everybody has been kind of feeling nothing but doom and gloom. Do you feel like that's warranted, or do you feel like it's not going to be anywhere near as bad as people think, or what are your thoughts and opinions on everything?
My personal opinion on it, I've served under a similar administration in the past, and I stayed in the closet during that administration. I was still just as an effective soldier at the time. I still raised my right hand and said, I do so solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, right? Still able to squeeze triggers, put rounds down range, drive my Humvee back and forth, still able to do all of the exact same things that I did yesterday, today, in the future, right? I'm still an effective service member. But for someone to say that because of a certain administration or a certain political party, or to say that I am not as effective tomorrow because of who takes office, I think that that's a disservice to a bunch of service members. There's 15,000 service members in the United States military that are transgender. And for somebody to say you're not qualified to serve tomorrow because you're transgender, the billions of dollars that it would cost to replace those critical roles, that talent that is lost, those realistic, empathetic servant leaders who absolutely know the ins and outs of the community. They know their soldiers, they know their sailors, they know their Marines, their airmen, they know their guardians, and all of the critical roles that we fill, right? People within my tiny itty bitty subsect of the community, for somebody to say that, the next administration or someone might take that away from us, I think that it would be a disservice to our country. I've said it once before, I'll say it again. We are just a little picture of what our country looks like. And if you think that, I don't know what the DoD represents, maybe less than 1% of the population, transgender service members, we represent less than 1% of the DoD. If they want to say that it's a cost to benefit ratio, I think that their numbers might be slightly skewed. I'm not a mathematician. And so I would just ask them how much it costs to replace a fighter jet pilot, or how much it takes to replace a company first sergeant, or how much it takes to replace an Apache pilot, or all of the medical personnel, or if we were to look at the transgender community, about 75% of the service members that serve are senior military members, right? If we just take all that leadership out, who's going to replace them? It takes time, effort, energy, money, and it's all because what? I don't know. I'm still just as an effective warfighter as I was yesterday. I will be tomorrow. I will continue to serve until somebody tells me to hang up my hat. And then I'll just ride off into the sunset someplace cool. But
Given the option, going the full 20 years?
Yeah, no, I'm doing 20 plus. I'm at 18, and I just hit my 18-year mark last month. And so I've got another 2 or 3 assignments underneath me. I've got one more, maybe 2 more ranks if you count like lateral promotions or like whatever. But like I've got one more up, and then I'm like tapped out. And I don't want to go to the dark side and be an officer. I love being an enlisted service member, right? Like I like guns, beans, bullets, doing soldier stuff. And if they tell me that I can keep doing it past 20, I'm down. I could have dropped my retirement packet last month. I'm here for the long haul. I
Do you
love
get
the
extra
Army.
benefits if you go past 20 years?
Like a tiny bit of extra money. It's not so like I'm on the old retirement plan. If there's any young service members watching here, make sure that you're contributing to your thrift savings plan so that you can have a retirement better than what you got. There's a small monetary benefit as you get more time in. I think it goes from like 50% of your base pay up to like 60, 75%. Some senior enlisted or senior officer might see this and be like, Master Sergeant should have known exactly what her retirement looks like. And I'm gonna be like, oh, okay, yeah, well, I'm good at not math. I have a wife that does all of my accounting for me. I'll be honest with you. I don't do my own money.
I handle the money at my household, so
Yeah, okay. So like honestly, it's been my career for the past 18 years. And if somebody said, we're going to put you out at 20 and you have a shelf life, I will look at them and say, okay, that kind of sucks, but I'll go on and continue to serve somewhere else. If they say, hey, you can go to 25, I'll go to 25. I think somewhere around 25 or 30 years, like that's my shelf life. Like I'm done. When I'm older than 45, I don't have any relevance to the 18-year-old service member that's joining. There's a little bit of a disconnect. If you look at like senior echelons of leadership to more junior levels, I would say that the tactile feedback at the team level, that's where, leaders are most effective. And when you've been in for 25 years, you're nowhere near that. You're all the way up here. And so that disconnect, it takes away a lot of what you love: training, leading, shaping, developing junior soldiers, junior leaders, and making the Army better for tomorrow. I hope that they let me keep doing it. If not, then I don't know what I'm going to do. What's that?
I say if they don't, they'll be losing an incredible soldier. But with that being said,
I am super average.
being very honest. But with all that being said, I want to thank you so much for joining us. But that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much. Next week, we're going to be meeting up with another member of the military. And don't forget to check out our show notes for any kind of information you'd like to talk to. Reach out to us. Our Discord and social medias, and also how to reach out to us through email will be in the show notes. So talk to you soon. See you guys next week.